What's up guys, Official Phone Rebel here, and today I'm going to be comparing the new HTC One M9 to the HTC One M8. So this is the latest offering from HTC, and they've got a few tricks up their sleeve, but is it enough? In this video, I want to talk about, is the HTC One M9 worth the upgrade? It seems as if this phone hasn't changed at all. If you just look at it, it looks almost identical to the HTC One M8. At first glance, looks like a few things have been changed. The power button has been relocated, the front has a full bezel going around it, the camera is now a rounded square instead of a circle, and another camera. On the bottom, you'll notice that the antenna bands have remained there, and around the phone there's a two-tone finish. Of course, this depends on which color you get. The volume buttons have been separated, and the nano and SIM card trays have been swapped from one side to the other. Otherwise, these phones remain looking very much the same. HTC has certainly beefed up the HTC One M9. Not only the power, but also the casing. It's now thicker, however grippier than the M9. HTC has pretty much decided, why mess with perfection? The M8 was already good, let's just take that and work on it. Kind of like an iPhone 5 to 5S upgrade. You know, just an incremental upgrade with very minor differences. So it is a little bit thicker now, almost 3 millimeters thicker, and that does make a difference. It makes it more comfortable to hold, but ultimately it is a slightly thicker phone. The design has changed. It's a little messier now. It's not necessarily for the better. The M8 featured a well-rounded unibody design, whereas the M9 is split up into two sections, the bottom portion of the phone and the top, which is pretty much the whole display. Both phones do feature an aluminum construction, which makes for awesome durability. However, the back of the M9 now has a jewelry grade finish, which takes about 300 hours to complete. It gives the phone a really luxurious look. It certainly looks better to me than the HTC One M8. However, the HTC One M8, depending on which color you get, is also a beautiful phone. Now, just glancing at these phones, you'd be hard pressed to notice any differences, but there are some distinguishing features, such as the different shapes of the camera lenses, and the new camera lens on the HTC One M9 now features sapphire glass. On the side, of course, you have your split volume rocker as well as the power button, which I gotta say is a really awkward placement. Sometimes you press the volume instead of the power, and it happens a lot. The front of the phone on the HTC One M9 now features the latest Gorilla Glass 4 technology, which I gotta say is quite incredible. During my drop test, which I did so many things trying to break this thing, a 10-foot fall face down did not crack the Gorilla Glass 4. Of course, the best protection is to protect your phone with a case, but in the case that you do drop it without one, the HTC One M9 is definitely more durable. Now let's talk displays. This is one of the areas where HTC decided not to make any improvement. The only difference in the displays between these guys is the color temperature. It's slightly cooler on the HTC One M9. It's very hard to notice if you're just using one phone without seeing the other, but the difference is there. The One M8 features a warmer display, and there is a brightness difference as well. The M9 can produce 508 nits of brightness, whereas the M8 can only produce 490. This could make a difference out in bright sunlight. Other than that, HTC has decided to stick with a 1080p display, and good for them. Powering these guys, we both have Snapdragon processors. Now the M9 has the latest 810 version, which is an octa-core processor with 4 cores that are slightly slower and 4 that are slightly faster, which means that you get very good multitasking. For processor intensive applications, the M9 is definitely going to beat out the M8. So I wanted to put that to the test in real life usage. I'm going to do a Geekbench and then run a couple applications, see which loads faster to get a concrete result. Now after making sure all applications were closed running in the background, I ran a Geekbench to get a score, and surprisingly the HTC One M8 did very well in comparison to the new M9. Either that or the new specs just aren't that impressive. So we got a very fair result on both of them. 985 versus 1220, not that much of a difference. For a full upgrade, you know, that doesn't make much sense to upgrade just to get that little bit of speed difference. Now I wanted to perform a Wi-Fi speed test, and the HTC One M8 outperformed the M9 in this one. Not really sure what's going on here. Could be different Wi-Fi drivers, whatever it is, but the M8 certainly did have a faster download speed. The newest M9 also has the latest version of Bluetooth. Loading web pages on the HTC One M9 was also slightly faster on some websites. On some, the M8 outperformed the M9. Now let's talk cameras. This is a very important factor in any smartphone, and the M9 definitely evolves in the camera. It no longer has that ultra pixel on the back, rather it's been placed on the front, and you now have a conventional 20.7 megapixel shooter. And when you look at the results, the camera quality certainly has improved from the HTC One M8 to the the M9. However, one of the biggest complaints many people are having with the M9 is that it's a very unresponsive camera. When it comes to features, this thing does not have a very good focus. I mean, it's a slow focus and the colors are overexposed. It's better from the M8, it's just not a very good camera itself. Also worth mentioning is the selfie mode. Ultra wide lens with the ultra pixel sensor makes for some great selfies. Now, the HTC One M8 already had great boom sound speakers. The M9 works on that with a Dolby digital sound processing algorithm. It makes it sound more like you're in an amphitheater instead of the sound coming from a cramped smartphone speaker. The HTC One M9 is running the new HTC Sense version 7, which includes a lot of customization. You can now theme your device, theme sounds. There's a lot you can finally do with your device. It's not so restricted. Both of these do also run Lollipop, of course, depending on carrier. Now, thanks to the extra width of the HTC One M9, a bigger battery can fit inside of that shell, and HTC has done just that. They've upgraded the battery just a little bit. However, actual battery life doesn't seem to have improved at all for me or for other users. Of course, these do both have the Quick Charge 2.0 feature as well as an ultra power saving mode, which can come in handy many times. Storage on the HTC One M9 is pretty straightforward. You get a 32GB option and that's it. On the M8, you get a 16 and 32. Now, prices for the unlocked version of the M9 are $649, and if you're gonna buy new, you can get an M8 for $499 unlocked. Now, if you browse eBay, you're gonna notice there's a ton of these for cheap. And I mean cheap. A lot of people want to get the new M9 so you can get it for really cheap. Now, is it worth upgrading from the M8 to the M9 or buying an M9 over the M8? Well, not really. It's really hard to justify that price when you're not getting much in return. At first glance, these devices are strikingly similar. There's really not much distinguishing one from the other, especially feature-wise. The M8 is cheaper, yet it can do almost everything that the HTC One M9 can. I mean, M9 has some very small tweaking to the display, really nothing significant. The battery is just a little bit bigger. There's a little bit of modification, but modification can be achieved by rooting your device either way. The camera is supposedly a little bit better, but it's still not great. The only reason I'd upgrade from the M8 to the M9 is because of the Gorilla Glass 4. It's extremely durable. I love it. In the drop test, it showed that this thing can take a hit. The power isn't even all that better, so you guys can see why I'd be so hesitant to upgrade from the M8 to the M9. There just isn't too much compelling reason to do so. It's certainly a beautiful device. I just wish HTC made it a little bit better. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Have a great day. Peace.